Assalamu alaikum. In the last class, we started off with stylistics examples, and we are going to continue forward with it today and hopefully finish this part. Okay. So, first of all, we saw how certain linguistic aspects, technical aspects of linguistics, is applied to literature study, right? And in that case, we saw transitivity and underlexicalization, two technical aspects of linguistic study applied to William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. To analyze this one particular character, Benjamin, who is mentally retarded, mentally underdeveloped, right? And how language seems to, the language used for Benji, for this character, seems to reinforce his mental condition. There is ample use of an oddity in transitivity, and also a great deal of underlexicalization, wherein a couple of words that are not very specific, are with a couple of very general words are used to express a certain idea or a thought or an image or an object in Benji's case. So we saw some two interpretations, wherein in one case we see how Benji has little sense of action and their effects on objects, and in the second interpretation we see a certain descriptive circumlocution occurring, and that is achieved through underlexicalization. Then we started off looking into Capital, a poem written by Auden, which seems to signify a character's isolation, right? A character's isolation, as in how each one of us, every single person, is isolated in a probably in a city. Okay, so we saw it from a liberal humanist perspective, and today we'll continue continue to analyze it from a stylistician perspective. All right. So yesterday I even read the poem to you. I hope you remember it to some extent. I wouldn't go through it again. So the first idea that we are going to use is of collocation. Again, we'll look at collocation in general terms, but here we are going to apply it to the capital. Okay. So collocation, at the risk of being repetitive, I will talk about it a little more. So collocation is something that is habitual, a set of words that is habitual or expected to co-occur. Okay, co-occur as in that normally or usually seem to occur quite often together, right? So we had certain examples yesterday. We spoke at length about a piece of cake, a piece of chalk. When we start off with the word or a phrase, a piece of, automatically your mind supplements the next word that could possibly or most probable to appear, right? So when we speak of a box of, automatically the first thing that would come to your mind would be a box of. Think about it. What comes to your mind? A box of chocolates, a box of pen, a box of cake, a box of hankies, a box of tissue. The list is endless, not entirely endless. They are restrictive, but then you would or your mind would automatically supplement something that you're most used to, right? And come to the next point. A black board. I mean, if you are in a setting where where it's a classroom and you do have a blackboard in front of you, that would be the first thing that would appear, come to your mind, right? A blackboard, a black swan, a black woman, a black man, We don't often say black child, do we? Think about it. Okay, the third idea or analogy, an uninvited, the only thing that my mind could supplement here, an uninvited guest. Yeah, my son's saying a black sheep. See, obviously. Now, a black sheep is more of a cliche than a collocation. That's the difference. You see, when we speak of cliches do have the same, the same, what do you call it? It is technically rather similar. Not same, they are similar. Collocation and cliches are similar. Whereas collocation can have differences, as in plenty of variables. A cliche is set in its ways. Okay, a black sheep would automatically indicate that we're not talking about an actual sheep, but someone who belongs to a set of people who are good, and he alone or she alone is not worthy of that set. Okay, so that person would be called a black sheep. Anyway, so you do understand, you do realize the difference between a collocation and a cliche, right? So cliches is like, now again we have an example here of cliche. He went as white as a sheet. White as a sheet is a cliche. Generally we don't become as white as sheet. Well, no one can take up that texture, that complexion, right? But it's just a cliche that is often used, right? Each word in an utterance progressively narrows down the range of possibilities for the words which succeed it. Okay, now each word in an utterance, as in like each word in a phrase, it narrows down. Okay, it narrows down the range of possibilities for the words which succeeded. So it keeps on narrowing down until there is only one idea left, only one thought left, and that would be cliche for you. Okay, it's a fine, could it be a day? It's a fine day, it's a fine afternoon, it's a fine morning, or it's a fine way to calculate the height of a steeple. Now this last part is very, very specific. I don't have a marker here. Just hold on, let me see. Yeah, I've got a brush. Okay, I can use a brush, I believe. Now look at this alone. Do you think this could be applied to the space here? It's a fine way to calculate the height of a steeple. Of course, yes, but it would not be a part of collocation. Please bear this in mind. It cannot be a collocation. Again, it's a fine day is something that could be a collocation and also a cliche to some extent, right? Fine day, it's a fine afternoon, a fine morning. No, fine afternoon, nobody says it's a fine afternoon. Or it's a fine morning. Yes, they do tell fine morning, yes. Fine afternoon, no. Fine day, yes, definitely, right? So this is the most probable. Okay, it's the most see, you need to narrow down the range of possibilities for the words which succeeded. So when you narrow it down, you finally end up with the most probable, the most possible, the most apt word that could go into the making of that collocative phrase. All right. Okay. Now, I don't know. I'm using a new recorder here because my old recorder seems to just shut down on me, and my laptop is broken as well. So I am sort of experimenting with this. So here are certain examples from capital, Auden's capital. Waiting patiently. Now generally, I believe, generally we use the word waiting patiently along with waiting, right? Just hold on a minute. I can't seem to bring it in here. Oh, something happened. Yeah, now this word waiting, oh my goodness, it just keeps moving. Yeah, now this word waiting has this adverb patiently. It's a common adverb. It's a very, very common adverb that is often used with waiting, right? Now look at Auden's poem. He breaks the collocative pattern and brings in this new adverb that is not generally used for for waiting at all, ever, right? Nobody waits expensively. Do we wait expensively? No way. By breaking this collocation, he is creating a new kind of a new, a new interpretation, or probably a unique sense to the idea of waiting itself. And it is because the rich are the ones who are waiting expensively for miracles to happen. The poor, they are waiting. They can be waiting patiently. But the rich, they are well off as it is, and they are still expecting miracles to happen. And yes, those miracles can happen only because they are rich. Now, city seems to favor those that are well off already, not the ones that are in need of its favors, right? So you see, a city is a land of promise. A capital is a land of promises where your dreams tend to come true. But in this case, what you find is the city is incapable of providing for those who are poor, or rather, it provides only for those that are already rich. So Ambani becomes more and more richer every day, right? Whereas the one in the street near the gutter, living near the gutters, he is still in the gutter. He can't even dream about, making a life for himself anywhere, finding a better life for himself anywhere. It is a depressing state of events where a person living in a capital is concerned, right? Now think of this village. When we speak of villages, we generally speak of a sleepy village, a sleepy town, right? Or a picturesque village. I happen to come across a picturesque village. Or a friendly village. Yes, you often come across this phrase, this collocative phrase in novels. You're told it's a friendly village. He happened across a friendly village, right? He passed across a friendly village, right? If you see Walter Scott, I remember reading somewhere in Walter Scott's writing, I think it was Kenilworth, he makes use of this word, friendly village, right? But here in Auden, there is this collocative pattern is broken down, and a new adjective is used. A new adjective is used to indicate this village, to describe, to qualify this village. It is malicious village. What is it called? Malicious. Something new. The collocative pattern is broken down to create a new kind of phrase that is hitherto not thought of. Okay. Carter says that these kind of collocational breaks signify parts which are thematically charged. Okay, so these breaks, these are called collocational breaks. They signify parts which are thematically charged. So the theme is reinforced. The theme is made to be, stronger, more powerful. They are expressed more powerfully through these collocational breaks. Please bear this in mind. Okay, moving on to the next slide. There is another very commonly used technical aspect, linguistic aspect, that can be applied for literature, interpretation of literature, for a literary text. That is cohesion. Cohesion is nothing but that which connects an idea to its preceding or succeeding ideas. Okay, something that binds, that has a connective. Okay, it acts as a connective. So cohesion would be something that carries on the idea through the narrative, All right. So it's a lexical item. Words which cross boundaries between sentences, binding them into a single continuous utterance. So you can. It would be better if you go with this definition here. Cohesion is a lexical item. Lexical item as in words which cross boundaries between sentences, binding them into a single continuous utterance, even though they are grammatically separate sentences. Okay, so there are connectives all the time. You must have dealt with anaphora and cataphora, I believe, in your grammar, when you were learning your grammar. The same thing applies to cohesion as well. All right, references. It references toward and backward, forwards and backwards. Okay, so that's how, like, if you have once mentioned a character, later on when you're talking about the same character, you don't use the name of the character again and again and again, right? You do use it. It is understood. The way all the character is represented later on is understood by mere indicators. Certain indicators are present that show that we are talking about that particular character or this particular character, right? And it is explicit. It is just implicitly mentioned, but it is understood explicitly, right? So here, look at this sentence. This is Mandy. This is Mandy. Mandy is my friend. Mandy and I go to picture together. This is Mandy. Mandy is my friend. Mandy and I go to picture together. What is so awkward about it? I mean, don't you find the sentence? See, these sentences a bit awkward. So, what is so awkward about this? What is so peculiar about these sentences? Can you guess? Nobody says this is Nandini, or this is whom do you have in your class? This is Priya. This is Sandhya, and Priya and Sandhya are friends. Priya and Sandhya are going to the picture. Priya and Sandhya are fighting. Priya and Sandhya are eating. Priya and Sandhya have gone out. We don't do that, right? In the first case, we may say this is Priya and that is Sandhya. Yes, we use the connective there and, right? The conjunction and there. So once you have said this is Priya and that is Sandhya, I'm sorry. So once we've introduced the two characters, we move on by saying they have eaten, and after eating they've gone to the pictures, and they are going to the pictures, or they are fighting. I mean, we don't want fights here, so I'll remove that sentence from this narrative, but the idea remains that instead of using the same word, that is the same the names of people again and again, we substitute it with a pronoun, right? So here, see, there is a very obvious absence of pronouns here. This is Mandy. Mandy is my friend. Mandy and I go to the picture together. So Mandy could this Mandy and okay, where's my brush? Yeah, this Mandy and this Mandy could have been substituted with a pronoun, right? A pronoun could have easily substituted these, and it would have made more sense. We could say this is Mandy and she is my friend. We go to picture together, right? It would have a continuation here. There would have been a cohesion here, a connection here, which is quite lacking, right? Again, see, now the remedy to remove this awkwardness would be pronominalization. Okay, pronominalization would simply mean adding of pronouns or substitution of certain words by pronouns. Alright, so Mandy can be substituted in the next sentence with a she, in the next sentence with a we. That is, if we are talking about a collective pronoun, right? Or if we are going to go for a direct pronoun, we can use you. Alright, so one sec. So according to Donald Bartholomew, what we find is distorting patterns of cohesion creates incongruity in text, in narration. All right, so we move on to the next slide. This is foregrounding, but before we go to foregrounding, I would like to talk a little more about collocation. So we've already seen that collocation is the co-occurrence of certain words. There is a familiar grouping of words, especially words that habitually appear together and thereby convey meaning by association. So you understand that whenever collocative phrases appear, you automatically understand a certain meaning, a certain and see, you not merely get its denotative meaning, it also indicates certain connotative meaning as well, right? So they convey meaning only through association. Collocational range refers to the set of items that typically accompany a word. Okay, how a word is accompanied by certain other set of words. The size of a collocational range is partially determined by a word's level or specificity and number of meanings, how they seem to have a number. There are certain examples of collocation which have become cliche to some extent. Take a break. When someone is yelling at you and when someone is angry at you, you simply tell them to take a break. When you find someone very restless or exhausted, you tell them to please come on, take a break. Then break a leg. Well, you obviously do not intend for that person to fracture their legs. All you are going to tell is, I mean, it's a term that is most commonly used in acting, right? Acting in the sense, if someone is going to go and perform up on the stage, you tell them to go break a leg. If they are going to perform, say if they are going to sing, you tell them to break a leg or something like that. So break a leg simply means all the best in this sense. Okay, so literally speaking, break a leg would mean go and fracture your legs. Okay, break your bones. But from the collocational perspective, the meaning of this phrase changes. Break a promise. It's a collocation, a simple and straightforward promise. Collocation. Break a record. Make a noise. Make an effort. Keep the change. I mean, these are phrases that have not become cliche but are still used as collocational phrases. Often, keep a promise, keep a secret. So, see, the etymology of collocation comes from place together. Okay, from Latin, as in how, call, location. Location would be place. Collocate would mean co-locate, as in bring together to one place. The term was first used in its linguistic sense by British linguist Geoffrey, who famously observed, "You shall know a word by the company it keeps." See, it's a very prosaic way of saying that you can understand a word by how or what it is associated with, right? No word exists in vacuum, right? Okay, some other examples and observations. Once upon a time there was a, right? Once upon a time is a collocation. She has an iron will. Iron will again is a collocation. He is a man of his word. Man of his word is a collocation again. More predictable collocations there are, like the flock of sheep or adult brains, spick and span, tit for tat. All of these are collocations that you can use. Tit and tat, okay, yeah. So there are further some of the other concepts that that the stylisticians use, which is not mentioned in Peter Barry's beginning theory. At least the edition which we are using, it does not have, I mean, it does not focus upon diegesis and mimesis in terms of stylistics. Okay, so we have already discussed while we were talking about Aristotle that I believe we have spoken about it, that diegesis is basically telling or narrating, whereas mimesis is showing. Okay, as in when you look at a play or a drama of sorts, or even a novel for that matter, it has both concepts. Okay, diegesis, wherein the author tells you what's happening. Okay, and mimesis would be where you actually find the characters interacting with each other. There are dialogues, there are expressions of the the characters, they wink, or they smirk, or they smile, or they laugh, or they cry, or they sob. All of these are mimetic in nature. The dialogues that are given to them, even that is mimetic in nature. Whereas diegesis would be something that is related to you about the characters, about what happens in the meantime, and why they are behaving in a certain manner, or what the reasoning behind it, and all of that. That is the narrative. Okay, narrative would be the diegesis. Like mimesis, diegesis is a term explicated in the works of Plato, Ion, and the Republic, and Aristotle's Poetics. The opposite of mimesis, it refers to the information related by the narrator, and many times is comprised of characters, thoughts, and actions. This excludes dialogue, which is categorized under mimesis. In addition, diegesis can be characterized as dialogues would come under mimesis, not diegesis. Many people tend to confuse that dialogue belongs to the category of diegesis, which is not the case. Dialogues are mimetic, okay, because the actors are miming it, or the character is miming it of a real life, whereas diegesis is something that is related to you by the narrator, by the author. Okay, it is told to you. This is shown to you, right? Understand the difference, please. Diegesis is what is told to you. Mimesis is what is shown to you. In addition, diegesis can be characterized as a narrator's commentary on the thoughts and actions of characters. So, the diegesis basically deals with what the characters are thinking or doing, whereas mimesis is what you see the character doing. Okay. Now, here's an example. A twisted piece of paper lay half burnt upon the hearthrug. He picked it up and unfolded it in order to get a better pipe light by folding it the other way of the paper. As he did so, absently glancing at the pencil writing upon the fragment of thin paper, a portion of a name caught his eye, a portion of the name that was most in his thoughts. He took the scrap of paper to the window and examined it by the declining light. So you see, this particular part is entirely diegetic. Diegetic as in it is related to you, it is told by a narrator. Alright. As in what the character is doing, the character seemed to have come across a piece of paper that is half burned, and he picks it up and he unfolds it, he sees it, and the expression, even the expression of his is related to you in what he does with the paper. All of it is diegetic. That is, it is related to you, it is told to you. You are not exactly looking at it directly. You're not looking at the action of the character directly. So it is diegetic in nature. Now consider this. Mimesis from ancient Greek is to imitate, and is a critical and philosophical term that carries a wide range of meanings, which include imitations, representation, mimicry, receptivity, non-sensuous similarity, the act of resembling, the act of expression, and the presentation of the self. So, mimetic would imply all of it. It would include all of it. What does it include? Imitations, representation, mimicry, receptivity, nonsensuous similarity, as in that which does not relate to the senses. Okay, the act of resembling. Okay, how you find similarities. The act of expression, how things are expressed. The presentation of the self. All right, all of it would come under mimesis. Now there's this one fine example here. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil, my lust shall be satisfied upon them, I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. From the Exodus. See, it is completely mimetic, as in it is related, it is expressed directly to you, that you are watching, right, that you can see for yourself. See, the basic difference between diegesis and mimesis is diegesis that is related to you, that you hear it second hand, that you get to know it second hand, whereas mimesis is something that is shown to you, that you see directly, that you relate to directly. Alright. So, moving on, just remove this, probably this, yeah. So, moving on, what is reference and what is representation? There is a tiny detail of difference between reference and representation. When we speak of reference, it is the indexical function of language pointing to different aspects of reality. So reference would simply mean that you are alluding to something else, you are referring to something else. Okay, it is acts as an index. Like index tells you which chapter is in what page, right? It directs you, it shows you the way. So that's what referencing does. It alludes to something, something elsewhere, different aspects of reality. Whereas representation is manipulating language to stand for an experience or situation. Okay, you manipulate the language, you modify the language, you use the language to make it stand for an experience or situation, that it represents something. There already is something else, and you use language to describe or show that something else in a certain way. Okay, the language is manipulated to describe something else, some experience, some observation, some situation. That's what representation does. So speaking of reference, this is what I was talking about when I said earlier that you must have come across anaphora and cataphora earlier, that you must have worked out these these referencing back and forth in your grammar classes at school, or in college. I don't know, but then this is not something entirely new. So do we have enough time to continue? No, I've already crossed 31 minutes, I guess. So I'll just stop here and continue with referencing, and we yet to have a foregrounding to do, and we'll look into representation a little more in detail tomorrow, inshallah. For now, this is all for now. Thank you so much. Stay safe, be happy. Assalamu alaikum.